那欢迎来到我们今天的这个直播间哈。那今天我们这个直播呢是专门给大家准备的一个特别场哈，会给大家带来一个不一样的话题啊。就是相信我很多的这个小伙伴在这个帮助客户找房的时候，或者说你们是在自己找房的时候呢，可能会遇到一个问题哈，就是我们怎么样可以很快速的找到一个比如说热点地区，然后呢让我们有足够的这个数据去支撑这样的一个选择，去买到这样的一个合适的房子。那么毕竟我们知道哈，在澳洲来讲的话呢，15000多个 suburbs， 然后在这么多的 suburbs 里面的话呢，我们要去做很多的这个筛选，然后找到合适的这个机会如果说我们要通过自己的这个时间去找的话呢，可能是一个需要花很多时间的一份工作，对不对？然后我们自己作为一个买家代理的话，如果说我们把所有的时间花在了这个找数据上，找这个各种地区的上面，那么我们其实根本不用干别的工作了 ，OK？ 因为这个几乎是一个全职的工作，或者说呢，可能一个人去做都不够，可能要几个人甚至一个团队去做这样的一个数据调研，你才有可能收集到真正的第一手的数据，然后去分析出哪些地方是适合买的，哪些地方是可能现在已经过了它的这个最高点的热度了 ，OK？ 那么我们有没有什么办法去更快更好的去筛选这样一个地区呢？有没有什么办法通过一个更加合理的价格去筛选这个地区呢 ？OK， 那今天呢跟大家带来一个特别的嘉宾，好吧？这个是我们那个 SuburbsFinder 的创始人 Gilbert。那我认识 Gilbert 也是几年前的事情了，因为我用他的软件也有很长的一段时间了那这个呢就是因为我们过去来讲的话呢，我们在给客户提供这个用户报告和数据的时候呢，我们总是会发现一个问题，就是我们怎么样能够给用户呈现一个非常专业的报告 ，OK， 非常专业的报告，同时呢，我们能够比较轻松的找到说，在这些地区里面有哪些的这个房子是合适买的，哪些地区现在接下来的一段时间呢会有一个比较好的涨幅的，对吧？那这个是我们之前在刚开始做这个买家代理的时候呢，也会遇到的一个问题。那后来这个问题慢慢就找到了很多的这个方法，那么就通过这个 SuburbsFinder 这样的一个软件的话呢，可以帮我们的这个用户很快的去做一个决策，它可以很快的通过这些视觉上的数据去发现就是哪个地方是值得购买的，哪些地方可能是不用去考虑的 ，OK， 节省了我们大量的时间，所以我们的很多的专注的工作可以在哪里呢？就是直接在这个热点地区去找适合的房源，以及专注在和这个中介去谈判，专注在比如说和我们的用户去沟通跟用户去介绍我们的这个服务，我们的这个我们能够为他提供什么，这样的话呢就可以有更多的用户来找我们去服务，对吧？那今天呢我们就跟大家去分享的就是我们怎么样通过这样的一个工具通过这样的一个数据平台，通过非常低的一个价格 ，OK， 不用你去花可能每年上百万的资金去买这个所谓的新鲜的数据，然后去喂到你自己的这个平台里面去产生合适的内容，你也不用说去担心你看到的数据都已经有很大的一个滞后性了，对吧？你拿到的数据可能是市场上别人做过了很多的这个 process 的一些数据，你拿的都是一些那个没有用的，或者说呢已经过了它的热度的这个数据 ，OK， 你拿的呢都是一个非常新鲜的数据，同时呢它已经帮你生成到了一个非常享用的一种模式，就是可以被你很轻松的 process， 通过各种的这个过滤器选择到你想要的这个答案。那么今天呢我们就邀请Gilbert 跟我们去讲。那么今天我们首先呢跟大家说一下呢，我们今天这个直播的时间大概会是在1个小时左右可能后面如果说大家有很多的提问的话呢，我们的时间可能会再长一点可能会给大家可能提供一个10分钟、20分钟的时间去解答你的各种问题。那最后呢，我会在这个直播之后呢，也会给大家提供一个福利，好吧？福利的话呢，就是说，如果你想要去用这样的一个软件的话呢，我给大家争取了一个折扣 ，OK， 那个折扣呢，就是让你会更好的去体验一下它的这个服务。然后如果说你想用它的这个服务长期的，不管你是自己去买房也好，或者说呢你是想去为你的客户提供一个更加专业的形象，并且节省你大量的这个调研的时间也好，那么这个呢是非常好用的一个软件 ，OK， 然后呢，在这个我知道有些小伙伴可能现在就是已经购买了一些这个工具，有些可能还没有购买这个工具如果说你已经这个购买了其他工具的话呢，你也可以做一个比较，好吧？就看看就是哪个工具呢可能对你来讲更加的适用一些 ，OK。好的，那我们现在就是有请那个 Gilbert。对了，今天跟大家分享一下，我们的今天的这个语言来讲是英文 ，OK， 因为就是就是我们的这个很多的专业人士在这个行业里面做数据调研的话呢，都是这个英文背景的，好吧？所以今天的小伙伴呢，就是我们都是全程英文的一个演讲。然后呢，小伙伴如果到时候有一些这个内容不是特别的听得明白的，或者说需要更多的这个帮助的 我会在这里跟大家再做一些这个进一步的讲解，好吧？然后有问问题的话呢，你中文问也 OK， 英文问也 OK， 对吧？我会跟这个 Gilbert 去沟通的，好吧？Thanks for coming, and we are pleased to have you here, right? So we now actually having a lot of students that actually want to understand how can we actually help our potential customers or helping our paid customers to actually to find the next hotspot, right? So that's actually in real estate what we want to do, right? So before that, actually, can you just introduce a bit about yourself and your platform?
Yeah. So just a bit of a background. So yeah, me. I used to do search engine marketing way back in 2004, and up to that, I focused on data analytics. And 2011, I moved here, me and my wife, and then 2016, basically started the property investing. So being into tech and data space, that's how I use all the data that I can get hold of to use them into property investing. So during that time, there's no platform that lets me play around with the data based on my requirements. And I said, all right, why don't I just create my own, right? Since I do have my technical know-how skills and understand the data in and out. Yeah, so so all the data that we have on the platform, these are all coming from all data providers, so such as CoreLogic, which is RP Data, Domain, Real Estate, council websites, and also ABS, Bureau of Census Australia. So that's where all the data is coming from, and we put it into one platform. Yep. So we launched soft launch 2021, and then up to now there are more than 2,000 people have used the platform, and it's mainly used by buyers agents and of course property investors, and even mortgage brokers as well. Yep.
Yeah, great. So Gilbert, thanks for your introduction for your background, right? Basically, that's great to know that you have a massive background in data analytics, right? Because that's actually a lot of people, even like for us, we started a business in real estate as a buyer's agent, right? We do actually wish we could have a great backup team that provide us such data, right? Because this is so important that we understand the data and having a great team to help back us with the facts, right? Because today, even in our internal training, we're talking about facts. Because if we don't have facts, all the decisions that we make is based on maybe some feelings, which might not be true, right? And that's basically most of the investors in the market they were doing. They're just trying, I feel this is a good area to invest, or I heard this is a good place to invest, but they have no fact, they have no hard fact to make such a rigid decision, right? So that's actually what we really wanted. Even as a professional, sometimes we may be limited on the area that we can only see, right? But if we what if we want to be a borderless investor? We want to helping our buyer to buy in other states, right? So the data becomes so important. So Gilbert, can you just tell us how this software works? How does it actually help buyer's agent to actually to find the next hotspot, or as an investor in general, if you want to understand where the next hotspot, and if this is going to be a good spot to keep buying, what do we need to do? Can you introduce us a bit about your software?
So this is important before we dive in. So as we know, capital growth is determined by supply and demand, right? So on the supply side, so these are the metrics that we're looking at. Say listings, stock on market percentage, rental listings, inventory levels, building approvals, right? And then on the demand side, we have days on market, online listing demand, or potential buyers. So potential buyers, these are the people looking at the for sale sections of real estate, domain, and whatever online listing sites, right? And then vacancy rate, vendor discount, and auction clearance rate, right? So understanding these trends is important in identifying those areas, right? So for example, when we see sale listings going down, that indicates there's a strong demand, right? Because properties are getting sold quickly, right? And and then rental listings, as rental listings goes down, then that's a good indication of rental demand as well, right? Next is building approval. So building approval, this is considered one of the few future metrics, right? So if you can see here on the lower right side here, based on this example, right? So when we're comparing 2022 to 2021, it's negative 778, meaning there are less approved houses or development approval for new houses or new dwellings compared to where it was last year, right?
Yeah.
And again, 2023 versus 2022, that's negative 500. So it only means that if the housing supply now is already tight, what can we expect more given that there are less approvals happening? Right, Shuai? So
Yeah,
that
so basically,
is
you can
for
see, the approval is dropping. That's a great sign that future supply is limited, right? So it's going to be a good sign.
Yep. So that is for the supply. So next is the demand, right? So as days on market goes down, we can see that that's an indication of there's a demand in the area. And then as online listing, or we can say potential buyers, as more people looking at the for sale section, that's a good indication of people's interest, right, in buying.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, vacancy rate goes down, then that's a good indication that the rental market is becoming tighter and tighter, right? So those are the two. Using these metrics, we can see we can get a lot of insights, right? But what if we combine both of them, right? So if you can see here, right? So what we're doing now is we're overlaying supply versus demand, right? So in here, days on market, the red line, the days on market goes down, right? And the sale listings goes down, right? So what is the effect on the current median house price, right? So we can see here the effect, it has gone up, right?
That's right.
And then same in here. So the number of people looking at the buy section has gone up, right? And then the days on market has gone down. So it means that these people who are looking to buy were successfully able to buy. That's the reason why the days on market has been going down, right?
Yeah.
And then the next one is the rental market. So as the supply of properties that are advertised for rent goes down and the vacancy rate goes down, so the green line here, which is the median rent, oppositely, it goes up. Right?
Yeah.
So it's very powerful when we overlay one or two data metrics against each other, right? So it tells a better story rather than just looking at this data by itself, right?
That's right.
So looking by itself, it's fine, right? Especially if we're looking at the trend, but it becomes more powerful when we combine these different data against each other.
Correct.
So how do we use, now we have an idea, we have an understanding of the relationship between these data points and what insights we can get. Now we can go to the platform, right? So this is the main dashboard, right? So we do have different sets of data here. So we have capital city, LGA, for houses and units. So for tonight, we'll just go to houses, right? So we do have almost 100 plus columns of data points in here, right? And all of this we can use as a filter. So the filters, these we can filter by location, right? So we can filter by different, so let's say we just want to select New South Wales, then we can do New South Wales, right? So if you can see here, there are 15,000 rows in here. So those are Australia-wide, there are 15,000 suburbs. Right? And then, so we can filter by location, we can filter by supply data. So all the supply data are in here. So the ones that I mentioned, the for sale listings is in here, rental listings are in here, right? And then next is we have the demand. So the demand, we have the sales days on market, and we have the rental days on market as well, right? So vendor discount, we do have it in here. Potential buyers, we do have it in here as well. And then the other one is performance. So the performance, your regular median price, days, vacancy rate, yield, and all. Next is the median price gap. So this is a bit important because let's say I want to see which areas that the gap between a 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom is, let's say, between 100,000 to 200,000. Now, as you can see, from 15,000 here, it went down from 1,400, right? So we filtered those areas. So these are the areas that the gap is between 100 to 200. So if you're able to look for a house in these areas that has a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a good layout, or probably an extra living room, once you convert that extra living room into another room, then you manufacture now an equity, right?
That's right.
So you manufactured easily 100 grand by just adding another wall and another door.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's the purpose of that median price gap. So we have also affordability, performance change, we do have demographics, and we do have earshot. So this is just indicates how affluent or how low social is the area is, right? This is based on ABS census data. So one of the use cases that we have。
OK， 小伙伴们，我跟大家再重新讲一遍这个地方，就是这个地方有多重要啊，就是这个有多么容易帮你们的客户或者帮你们自己赚到钱。OK， 这个什么意思呢？就是这个意思呢，就是说某一个地方的它的3房的房子和4房的房子中间的价格的差距能够有多大 ？OK， 那么我们知道哈，在澳洲来讲，一个房子的估价来讲，比如说估价师或者银行在估3房和4房的话，它是不同的这个段位的。3房一般来讲是一起来估，然后4房也是一起来估的。所以如果你是一个4房，那就按照找其他的类似的4房来去估价；如果你是一个3房，它就按照3房的这个市场来估价。OK， 那么如果你有什么简单的办法把一个3房变成4房，就像刚才 Gilbert 讲的哈，你是有个额外的一个，比如说一个 lounge 或者一个 living room 或者什么之类的，对吧？你把它隔一堵墙，把它变成了一个卧室，那么你这个3房就变成了4房，那么你的估价市场的话，它可能就马上就按照4房去估价了 ，OK， 那你会发现哈，这个地方如果3房和4房的差价能够有一个15万、20万的话呢，你加一堵墙的成本可能是很低的，但是呢，因为你做了这样一个变动，那么你的估价就可以直接上去了，你马上这个房子就有 equity 了 ，OK， 所以通过这样的一个filter， 通过这样的一个过滤器，你可以很容易的去找到哪些地方是可以立即的让你快速的获得这个 equity 的一种方法，好吧？所以这个很重要，小伙伴们，如果说你们想要去找到这种房子的话呢，那这个呢就是你应该可能会重点关注的一个区域哈，就通过这个来找到你的预算范围之内，然后呢可以通过加一堵墙变一个房间出来， 就可以获得额外的10万、20万的这个增值的地区。OK， 就可以通过这样的这个过滤器来去做的，好吧？
So yeah, so let's say one of the use case is, let's say we have a client, or we're looking for an area. Let's say the budget would be, let's say the budget is between 700, right? So between 700 or 550 to 700, right? So now you can see from 15,000 we're down to 882, right? And the next is we want at least 5% yield, right? So 5% yield. So now we're down to 157, right? And we also want a vacancy rate of 3% and below, right? So 3% and below, right? And then we also want that the area has experienced a compounded growth over the past 10 years, let's say between 9 and 3% or 4%, right? So now we're down to 93, right? We're down to 93. And we also want to make sure that the days on market is within 30 days and below, right? So that we can see that there's really market going on, right? And we also want to make sure that the data that we're looking at is statistically reliable, right? So what we're going to do is we put the average number of sales to at least 25 or 50, right? The reason why we're doing this is because all of the data that we have in here, these are all based on the number of transactions, right? The number of sales. So the fewer sales that's happening in that area, we can say that it is less reliable because the sample size is too small, right? So that's the main reason why we're putting it to at least 50, so that the data that we're looking at have enough sample size for us to say that the data is statistically reliable, right? So now we're down to 54, and then we can start adding other metrics such as percentage of owner occupier. So we want at least, let's say, 60% owner occupier or more than 60%, right? And above. And we also want, let's say, we want the area to be relatively safe, right? So we want the crime score to at least below 20, right? Right, so below 20, right? So now we can start narrowing down. So we now have 25. So we can start now narrowing down by, let's say here, we can sort the data from highest to lowest, right? And then we can just turn off the others. So we don't want, so let me just turn off the median price for 2-bedder, 3-bedder. Yep. So that we're looking everything. Yeah. So the median price, the rent, the yield, and the growth and the vacancy rate are all here. Okay. So I'm not surprised. Most of these are Queensland because this is based on our parameters, just on the budget alone, right? So this is what we can afford, right? So this is the list view. So if you are more visual, what you can do is you can click on the map view here, click that, so you can see where those suburbs are, right? So you can see that more are in North Queensland, right?
Yeah, Rockhampton, yes.
Yeah, and then the rest are in Perth.
Bunbury, Geraldton, yes.
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. So that's the list view, right? And also now that we've narrowed down, right, we also want to look at what are the infrastructure projects happening on that area, because that is important, right? That will support the future growth of an area. So we do have 4 different icons here, right? So let's say here in Rockhampton, for example. So when we click this first icon here, it will show us what are the infrastructure projects happening in that area, right? So we do have the project name, the value of the project, right? The category, the status, the start and end date, but most importantly, this one. How many jobs will that project create, right? Because that's, and how will it affect the local economy of that local government area? Because
Yeah,
that's the main reason why people would go there, because of jobs, right?
that's great. Yeah.
So
Because we know that, job is really a long-term parameter for an area that it can, prosper for the long time, not just for a short period of time, right? So,
yeah,
job brings demand, like job brings people, right? And people brings demand. And if it's actually a long-term job,
yeah,
then it would be bring a long-term demand. If it's a short-term job, it probably can give a bit of boost in the area. But of course, you still need to look in for the long-term economic drive in this area to make sure that it's a more stable area that you want to invest in.
yep, exactly. And not only that, if the government is spending on infrastructure and putting all new roads and all, then what they're doing is just they're forecasting the influx of the
Growth.
population going in that area, because they're already, supporting what will happen in the future, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that one, and then next is this icon here. So let's say we want to see what are your potential neighbors are doing in that suburb, right? So when we click this, it will show us what are the neighbors doing, right? What in terms of development. So you can see this is the council DA application number, the street or the address, and what type of development application happening in that area, right? And when was it received by the council? Because if you see, right, this 2 lots into two lots, boundary realignment, reconfigure development boundary. So there's not a lot happening in terms of, this is just dwelling house, but there's not a lot happening. Except for this one, but that is way back in 2021. One rural residential into 11 lots, right? So that's years ago, right? So we can see here that there's not a lot of development happening in that area in terms of new new house and land packages coming up, right?
That's
Because that's what we want to avoid. If there's
that's
a
right.
lot of development applications, you know, being submitted to create townhouses or new house and land packages, well, that we can say that there are a lot of supply will come up in that suburb, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And capital growth is the enemy. Supply is the enemy of capital growth.
Yes.
Yep. So next is we want to see what are the properties that are for sale in the area. So when we click this, say listings, So when we click that, so we are pulling the data from domain in here. So this is real time. So whatever is displayed in domain is displayed in here as well. So hopefully later on we can add, we can have both real estate and domain in here. So same, you can filter by what's for sale, what's for rent, what's sold. You can filter from highest to lowest, and you can filter by, land area, property type, and all, right? So we can see here this property, how this property is closer to this childcare facility, right? But this property is close to this school, right? So if if we're dealing with an owner-occupier client, then these are the facilities that they would want to be close to, right? Especially if it's a young family with kids, right? But next is we do have as well as layers in here, right? And we can determine what's the zoning of an area, right? So for Queensland, this is the one that's not yet available in terms of other planning layers, but for New South Wales, Victoria, WA, South Australia, these planning layers are already available. So let me just say an example. So yeah, so planning layers here. So when you click that, so we'll just turn off this one. So when we click this, it will show us if the property is close to bushfire zone areas, right? So we can see here, this is on buffer, right? On the vegetation buffer, right? So we don't want to buy that, or we don't want to risk it. And we also want to check if that the properties are away from the flood-prone area, right?
Yes.
So
that's right. That's
this
very
one
important. And sometimes
pretty much
you
on a
find
flood
a
zone.
property. Yeah, sometimes you find a property that's so cheap in the area, and you just, oh, you got a good deal, right? But you actually didn't really check the flooding zone, right? And actually, you really get a lemon, right? So you better to check all the due diligence, make sure that it's away from the water, right? It's away from the flood.
Well, not only that, but it will also affect your home insurance. Your premium will be a lot higher, right?
So high. If you're lucky that you get an insurer to buy the the insurance to cover you. Sometimes some insurers
Exactly.
just refuse to insure your property because it's in flooding zone.
Yep. And then we also have landslide in here, and then the land zoning as well, So if we're looking on an area, let's say for this one, this house here is in R3 zone, which is R3 is on a medium density residential zone, right? So provided that the lot complies or the lot is bigger, then highly likely you can create, townhouses in that area, right? So, yep. So that's one. And then we also have the heritage overlay, right? So I'm not sure if you're familiar with this suburb. Are you familiar with this suburb, Shuai? This is in Inner West.
Inner West, yes. That's a
Yeah.
nice card.
So, yes. So you'll be surprised
Don't
that
tell me like it's 80%.
the
Okay,
whole suburb,
the whole suburb.
and not only the whole suburb, but the other nearby suburbs as well, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful when you buy in this area, because if you buy and then you don't have any knowledge that it is on a heritage zone, then you'll be limited on what you can do if you want to renovate that property.
OK， 小伙伴们，就是这里我们注意一下，就是这个heritage 的这个 layer 的话呢，很多小伙伴可能不是特别的注意啊，比如房子觉得 OK 就可以买，对吧？很多时候我们可能看土地的价值或者将来的开发的价值。Harborfield 的这个我在旁边，比如说那个 Leica 的话呢，最近就和一个小伙伴是有一个项目开发的。那如果说这个房子呢是有这个 heritage 的影响的话，它可能会有一些，比如说你可能这个前面的门脸是不能改变的你需要做什么样的一个修复，或者说整个房子都不能做什么样的一个动作等等的，所以这个都是非常重要的。当我们去买一个房子的时候，如果这个房子是被这个就是历史文物所影响的话呢，就是可能会影响到你将来的话，你对这个房子做什么？你可能会想得很简单，说我把这个房子推倒了重建，建一个好房子，新房子就行了。但有可能它其实建不了的，这个可能会影响将来的你这个房子或者土地的开发的潜力。当然它也不是说完全没有好处它的好处有可能是说这个地方将来没有新的这个供应了 ，OK， 就是它开发很艰难。那么如果你买进去了，你能够去做一个比较好的这个内部的翻新也好，什么之类的事情也好那么这个地方的供应也许是比较少的。那这个是一个辩证的东西，大家需要去去分辨就是看看你的这个客户或者你自己投资的时候是什么样的一个 strategy， 好吧？
So the last button that we have here is the suburb report. So when you click that, so this fully white labeled. So how were they able to white label this is when you go to your profile and you click branding. So you upload your logo, right? You put your company name, you put your website, you change the color of the footer and the page number, and you upload your cover image, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now here, so you have here the 20, you have here all the demographics data in here, the 25 years of census data. So we can see that for the past 25 years, this suburb has always been an owner-occupier area, right? So we're not just looking at one timeline, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's the occupation of the people living in that area? What's the industry? What's the breakdown of owner-occupier and dwelling structure? And the summary in here. So how much has the property has grown for houses and units over the past quarter, over the past 12 months, and over the past 3 years. So you have here 24.84%. That's equivalent to 113,000, right? And then you have the rent and all, and same. So an explanation what days on market is, why is it important? So you have your median price and days on market. Yep, the relationship between days on market and median house price, right? So as you can see, as days on market goes down, there's an effect in price, right? And the reason why this is here, so that when we give it to someone or to a client, it's self-explanatory. You don't have to spend a lot of time explaining what is it all about, right?
Yeah.
That's days on market. That's for houses and this for units. So potential buyers. So these are the people looking at the buy section. You can see days on market goes down. Sale listings. So this is the supply. So you can see here the supply goes down. And the vacancy rate. So the vacancy rate has been really low ever since. So vacancy rate has been really low, and the number of advertised properties is really low as well, right? And stock on market. So this is just how many properties are for sale, and what's the percentage of that in the overall number of dwellings, right? So if there are 1,000 houses, combined houses and units in an area, and there's 100 properties that are advertised for sale, then the stock on market percentage is 10%. right?
Mm.
So next is just what's happening in that area. We have here the median rent, what's the equivalent of 34% in dollar value. Rental yield in here. This is pretty unique. Shuai, the room rental supply demand. So this is for a different strategy, very specific to rooming house, co-living, or boarding house, or share house, right?
Yeah.
This is the one that I've showed a while ago, development application approvals, right? So if you can see here, their 2 years has been negative, right? And even if it's 77, it's still less compared to where it was 2 years ago, right? So
Yes.
expect there will be lesser stock coming into the market.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's for houses. We have here for units. Yep. And the development applications, which I've shown you a while ago. And what are the infrastructure projects happening in that area as well? It's in here. What do we have? Childcare facilities, schools, if there are boarding house, rooming house, hospitals, and how affluent is the area, right? So a score of 5 and above means that the area is more advantageous or affluent, right? Meaning the people living in here are, well educated, has a good job, and they're earning more than the average.
Basically,
Sorry?
every single time that I've got a client that we need to service on my team, right? So we would like to get this report for them because this report looks so professional, so neat, and for us it's so easy to explain all the important data that we've been processing every single day, right? Because it's all in one report, right? So this is a great report, for buyer's agency, for any professional who actually want to invest.
Yep, and so this is typically they send this to clients who's already been signed up, right? So if you have a potential client who hasn't signed up yet, right? So this is the type of report. So you type in the suburb there and then click suburb market demand. So what it will do, it will generate a one-page report, right? So it's like a summary, right? So here's your logo, your clickable phone number, and your clickable email, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a one-page summary report of the supply and demand for houses, right? And so that's for houses, and this is for units, right? So this is more than enough information to understand what's happening in an area, but definitely they'll be curious more about it, so they'll be more than happy to call you to ask more.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you can use this as a great marketing tool as well to get a bit more inquiries, because that people want to know more data because they want to actually trust you, right? But where the trust is coming from is from fact. And what is fact? Is those data.
So yeah, so they have an understanding what's happening, right? And at the same time, if they want more, then they can give you a call or they can send you an email. Yeah. So that's the report that we have. And what else do we have here? Yeah. So let's say you already have, so let's say we want to focus on Queensland. What we'll do is we can select any suburb, maximum of 5. So when we do that, those suburbs that we selected goes here. And when we click compare, right, now you're comparing them against each other.
Very nice.
So you compare the median price, rent, yield, growth, vacancy rate, so everything in here, right? But we don't want to look at one or the latest month's data alone. What's important is the trend, right? We want to see where is the trend going. So we can compare by median price, rent, the yield, right? So we can see here that, which one is it? Beaconsfield has always been above 5% ever since, even during COVID times, right?
Yeah.
Now it's 6%. So that's huge. So yeah, and then the vacancy rate. So we can see here.
Oh, that's that
even before
Queensland, right?
Yeah, even before COVID, it's always been less than 2%, right? So we won't have any problems getting a tenant in here, right? And then rent per room, days on market, it's been going down. Rental days on market, it's below 30 days or even 20 days. So it's a tight market. So sale listings, the overall rental listings as well. So rental stock, these are just for houses, and then rental listings for houses. So these are people looking at the buy section. So there's a lot of people looking in Mount Sheridan compared to others. So we can see that this suburb, Rural View, has always been, over the past 20 years, has always been an affluent area.
Yeah, rich suburb.
And then the percentage of owner-occupier. So all of this area, all of them, for the past 20 years, these are all dominated by owner-occupiers. So let's say we've now identified, the areas in here. So let's say a while ago, which one is the one that we selected? Right, so let's say, where is that? Yep. So let's say here in Haberfield, right? So let's do more realistic, right? Let's do here. So let's say here in Mount Sheridan, let's see what are the for sale listings in here, right? Yep. So we have the listings in here. Yep. So let's say for this one, right? Let's see for this one, if you notice, there are two buttons in here, add to cart and analyze. So the add to cart means if you have a client, or if we're buying a property, two properties or three properties, all at the same time or one after the other, we want to see what would be the overall portfolio if I buy two, right? Or if I buy three. Right? So what we'll do is just click this, and then let's say we went to another suburb, and then we add that to our cart. It goes here, right? So what it will do, it will take the advertised price. So let's click analyze. So now these are the address that we selected, right? And then this is the suburb median price, this is the advertised price. So it pulls the annual growth right away and the vacancy rate, and it assumes a 20% deposit, which we can edit, right? So the stamp duty is automatically calculated. Don't worry about it. So it changes based on the state that we're buying, right? And then these are pre-filled. You can edit that. So you can put, by default, we just put in the buyer's agent fee. You can edit that as well. And then right away, you can see what would be the purchase cost, right? So all the non-gray areas, all of this is the current median rent for that suburb. Then the rest has been pre-filled, which you can edit, right? But most importantly, you can see what would be the cash flow for each property, right? But most importantly, what would be the overall performance of your portfolio if you buy these two properties at the same time or one after the other? So here you can see overall we are negative 34,000 before tax. So that's the overall summary for the two properties. So we can add as many as 10 properties here. Right?
That's great. So is this like a portfolio, right? So if you purchase like 5 properties, 10 properties, or if you already have these properties, like how is your overall cash flow, and what would be the portfolio growth in the future if we say by percentage growth annually, right?
Exactly. And let's say if you have a client who already has a portfolio, then what you can do is you download the Excel template here, you send it to them, and then you upload here, and it automatically populates the portfolio analyzer.
Yeah.
And then the other one that we have as well in here, not the sales. So this one. So as you can see, the other one is we do have the analyze button here, right? So this one, it does a forecast of the 30-year growth and cash flow of the property. So when we click that, so this is the property address. It's a house. It's a 4-bedroom house. This is the advertised price, which we can change. We're buying it to this year. So loan period, 30 years. You can change that. Interest rate, we can change it. So let's say now it's just, is it safe to say now that it's 6.5, Shuai?
Yeah. 6.5 is safe. Sometimes can go as low as 6, but let's do 6.5.
All right, let's do 6.5 then, right? So let's say interest only for 5 years, right? And then here we can put in here if single person are buying, or if a joint, or if we're buying it under super fund, right? So the reason why we're putting in our taxable income here, so that we can calculate the after-tax cash flow. So what we're doing here, instead of we're assuming what tax bracket you are, we are using the ATO's tax calculation or tax table of ATO, right? To get a more accurate as much as possible in terms of cash flow, right? So same, so this is the growth. You can change the deposit however you want. Stamp duty is automatically calculated. We can put in here the projected rental increase year on year, right? And we factored in inflation as well, right? And then we factored in depreciation, and you can put in here if you have LMI, right? So it's a bit hard to explain all the columns here, but when you click show charts, right, now it's a lot easier to understand. So it shows us your interest repayment is 2,900, right? So when your interest only expires, so this one, after 5 years, this will be your principal and interest repayment. And then it shows you what's your property value and your estimated usable equity every year, right? So it's telling us, based on the 4.93 annual capital compounded growth, provided that it continues on 2040, right, the value of the property will double. So here we have 680. and then 2040 it would be 1.399 or 1.4. Right?
That's right.
And how much equity do we have during that time? So we have 695 of equity. But on year 5, we already have 147 equity. Right? And let's say you have an extra 200 a month, right? So you put in here as an extra repayment. So what it will show you, it will tell you that putting in 200 a month extra repayment will shorten your loan period by 2 years. So this is the gray area is your original loan, but since you're putting in more, then the yellow line would be your new loan period. Yeah. So this is a good way why mortgage brokers and buyers agents are using this part of the tool, because they can explain to their client or potential clients or even regular moms and dads investors, they can do their feasibility or forecasting, right? So the section here is the after-tax cash flow, right? So here, this is interest only. Right? So this is how it looks like whenever we always keep on refinancing for interest only after 5 years. So it's telling us that on 2044, right, on 2033, will be positive after tax. So this is after paying tax, right? Straight to the pocket, right? Provided that we continue doing interest only. But if we stop interest only and after that we start paying for principal or P&I, remember 5 years interest only, and then on the 6th year, principal kicks in. That's why it became negative again.
Pay more. That's right.
Yeah, so pay more. Now it's telling us that on 2045, that is where we will be positive, right? But it's totally fine because that principal that we're paying here goes to the equity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we haven't really talked about refinance as well. If we refinance, you probably have another 5 years interest only, and your interest,
So
it's going to be
this
even
is how
lower.
it will look like if it's refinance, right?
Yeah.
And so you can save this as a PDF, put in your logo and all, and then give it to the client. And then as a buyer's agent, what they do is they give this to the client, to the PDF, and they tell the client, here's the feasibility or the forecasting. Send it to your mortgage broker or accountant so that they can validate the numbers, right? Because, as buyer's agents, we probably were not licensed to provide financial advice, right?
Yes.
We are just running the numbers, right?
That's right. We have to be careful with what we can do.
Yes, exactly. That's why what they do is, they tell the client, show this to mortgage brokers and all. But, most of the people that I spoke with, buyer's agents are even happy because after they validated the number, it's one of the tasks that's already been done for them.
That's right. Yes.
So so that's it. And also, one of the reasons why buyers agents and property investors use this section here is so that they can do planning and strategy. So let's say if I want a passive income of, let's say, 80,000 per year in, let's say, 10 years time or 15 years time, right? So what they do, so for this one, it's not going to be feasible. So what they do is they play around with the numbers. So this is 4.51% yield, right? So the way to increase that is we increase the rent. Right? So either we increase the rent or we increase the deposit, right? Yeah. Oh, let's say it's just one. So let's say this 800. Yep, 6%, right? So now, as you can see, it becomes more positive. So let's say for this type of property that has all of these numbers, right? So let's just turn this off. So in 10 years time, this property will be positive after tax by 17,000, right? So that means if we want a passive income of 80,000 per year in 10 years time, then we need to buy 4 properties having these numbers.
That's right.
So you're working backwards. You're working with the plan first before you start looking for an area. Right? Because you need to have a plan before you start looking.
Yes.
So same with this on property analyzer. So we have 2, right? So since this is negative, so we now know what would be the strategy, right? So we should be looking for the third property, we should be looking at a property that's also positive so that we can balance the whole portfolio. Right? So if we add this, right? So this is negative, it became more negative. So the one that we need should be, let's say 750. So that's 7%. And when we go here, so now it's almost balanced. Slightly negative, but at least it's just $6 per week. It's just 2 coffee for you.
It's just a coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason why we have these tools here. So to provide us with the strategy before we start looking for an area.
Yeah. Great. So Gilbert, with all the starters, hopefully, my student would now understand, how to actually use this tool to run a great cash flow analysis, right? Because this is very important. No matter if you're buying for yourself or you're buying for your customer or a client, they need to understand what the cost to hold a property, right? Especially in today's market, the interest rate is still so high, right? So even we see it's dropping a little bit, but this year we don't know how much it will go further, right? So it's still quite high interest. We want to make sure that our customer or ourselves can comfortably hold the property in long term. Otherwise, if someday you have to sell it, you might sell it at a loss because you're not in the best position to sell at the best price, right? You struggle, right? You have a timeline limited. So hopefully, guys, you understand how to do this, and also the portfolio. If you have a customer or yourself want to analyze your portfolio, right? So maybe which property that you need to give up, or maybe you need to consolidate your portfolio and make a better choice to reduce your opportunity cost. Because if you hold on this portfolio and you're running out of money, which means you have no loan and the cash to buy a better property, right? Then you can maybe make a better choice by looking at your portfolio analysis to understand, okay, I want to maybe give up this maybe a unit because it's not performing, right? And have a bit of cash flow, but there's no really genuinely capital growth. Or maybe I can hold on this property but it's purely for cash flow purpose. But I can give up the big land with a rundown house, which generated $0 cash flow, but I have to pay huge land tax, right? So that's actually what you need to understand and do it, right? So it's super important. Guys, this is the QR code, right? If you do want to actually try this software, this great software, you can actually use this QR code to get 10% discount. 像我们的话呢，就会每次都会用这个报告去呈现到我们的这个客户面前，尤其当我们敲定要选某一个地区的时候，好吧？所以希望这个就是对你小伙伴们有些帮助但如果说你现在不是我的学员的话呢，没有关系，好吧？今天我也会送给你们在开完会以后送给你们一个报告哈，就是关于就是买家代理的一些开始的这个报告，就你怎么样开始买家代理这个服务。如果说你想要这个行业去进行下去的话，或者说呢，你就是对于通过这样的一个软件感兴趣，你希望在你自己投资的时候呢，能够获得一个更好的一手的消息 ，OK？ 那你也可以通过这个订阅。Gilbert, I want to ask, like for SuburbsFinder, there's just so much data out there, right? Is there anything as an investor we need to be aware when we look at some data? Okay, maybe some data show something that could be a alert for a suburb that we need to avoid. Do you have such a thing from your experience, like something that if is something some data or parameters or things that you probably personally would avoid when you're actually looking for a suburb?
Well, definitely it differs based on different requirements, right? So I would guess the main I would say red flag that I would consider is the stock, right? So
the stock
so as the for sale listings gets in more and more, or as it increases, so those two, it's just these two. If the days on market keeps on going up, then probably it's not a good time on that area, right? Or sometimes depends as well if how we're going to look at it. Because if it's starting to go up, then that means it takes a while to it takes longer to sell, right? So that opens up an opportunity to negotiate, right? to buy at a bargain, right?
That's right.
So depends on how you look at it. But yeah, and then the other one is the sale listings. If there are more stocks, then probably it's not a good area, provided that you'll use that information as a leverage to negotiate, right?
Yeah.
Because as property investors, we should, and as a buyer's agent, we should start making money the moment that we buy the property.
That's right. Yes.
Not only by a couple of months after buying the property. Right?
Yes. That's right. And we always, tell our buyer or customers or students, we should understand, the moment that we purchase the property, that's the moment that you should know that actually you're buying a great stuff. You're actually earning money on this property, rather than you bought a property and finger cross and hope 10 years time it's gonna make you money, right? We can't be that passive. Like it's similar to what I just mentioned about 3-bed, 4-bed gap, right? So if you can find such a gap, it's so easy to actually having great return, right? Just by adding 1 or 2 walls on a living area, right? So that's so simple, right? So there's a lot of rooms there, because we have to understand in Australia that 70% of the purchase are owner occupiers, right? They are there to just buy the home. They're not there to play the investment games, right? So that's why we, as an investor, we're having the disadvantage or unfair advantage, actually, in my view, is to understand all those data and maybe just go before everyone else and go before the buyers, the owner occupiers, because owner occupier, when they see the data, was like, oh, this is crazy, I'm not going to buy here. What they don't know is actually there are 100 other buyers is coming to the market and are willing to pay more. So it's better for you to pay a little bit more to get into the hot market, to purchase at the right property and riding on the wave to get a great capital growth, right? So that is very important. I think a person is asking how often the data is updated.
The data gets updated, so the sale listings that from domain, that is real time, right? And then the infrastructure, the development approval, that is every fortnight, and the rest, including the infrastructure projects, the regular days on market, median price, those are updated every month. Right.
Yeah, so it's quite fresh. Basically, you got a lot of instant data.
Yes,
great.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And the person also asking, like, for suburb, like, how do you decide where is the peak or the bottom? Like, is there any way that you can recognize such a signal?
Yes, usually if the suburb already has grown by as much as more than 40% for the past 3 years, then we can say that it's already at the top, right? But sometimes, even if it's already on the top, if the demand is still there and the supply is still low, then it will still go up, but it will not, the rate of growth will not be the same as before, that it will be a quick growth. It will still grow, but it's just not at the same rate as before, right? And especially looking at what's happening with the supply at the moment, I don't think there would be a term that is already a peak. It may have peaked, but it will still go up slowly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Right. Well, but I would say that, for let's it really depends on the strategy, right? So because this person was asking the peak or the bottom, right? So it depends, like, how long, right? If you look for like the next 3 years or next 2 years, you might say, oh, today it could be at the top, right? Because next 2 years there's no real growth, right? But if you actually invest in long term, super long term, like 5, 10, 20 years, and today it might be the bottom, right? It probably just at maybe the lower cycle part, maybe it just go through the quick growth part, and now the market need a bit of an adjustment for the stuff. But after an adjustment, you probably would just have another growth, right? So for example, Perth, I would think, this year, it will still have a lot of steam there. Of course, it's not going to be as strong as last 3-4 years.
Exactly.
30-40%. However, we see a lot of fundamentals there, like as Gilbert also mentioned, it's very strong in the demand, and the supply is still super low, and also the affordability of what the people is earning comparing to the market price is still quite reasonable compared to Sydney, for example, right? So there's no reason Perth market is gonna go south next year or this year, right? Because there's just no reason why they're actually selling at a loss, because hey, there's just so much demand and they can have the money to afford such a property. So there's just no reason. So when we're talking about the peak or bottom, I think it's just really depending on your strategy. Like, why do you need a tipping point? Like, why do you need such a bottom do you want to get in? And I would say always, today is, the best time to invest is 10 years ago, or even just 5 years ago, right? But the second best time to invest is today, right? You can't get a better day than today if you actually are financially ready and you are mentally ready, that you know that this is going to be a long game for you. just do it. Don't have to worry about where's the tipping point. It's not like you do the share trading that you can exit the market so easily, right? Real estate is definitely a long game. You don't worry about the tipping point. What you really worried is actually at this moment, once you are ready to purchase a property or invest in an area, which area is going to be the best area for you to invest in today's market to reduce or minimize your opportunity cost, right? Yep. Because if you invest in the wrong area, and this area may have a really limited growth for the next 3 years, but the other area may have a great growth in this same 3 years time, then you are missing maybe 20% growth for the same money that you invest in, or for the same loan that you already taken, right? So that's the question, like how do you find the right suburb to minimize your opportunity cost should be the right question to ask, right? So hopefully this would answer your question to understand, how you can actually do it. And of course, it also depending on your strategy, right? So if you are selling, let's say if you are selling, that's another question, right? So you may think, oh, I want to sell at the top of the cycle, right? But it's so hard. I will tell you, it's super, super hard. When you know that that's a tipping point, normally it's already past the tipping point, right? So you never tell that, you can never know that, okay, I'm actually about to tip. I'm actually about to sitting on the top. You never know, right? Because at that moment, if it's not reaching the top, you always feel that there's some steam left that you can go, right? So don't using this as a strategy to actually say, oh, this is the time that I need to exit. Because 3 years ago, I do have a friend in Perth, right? She had a property in Perth for probably around 7 years, and didn't have a much growth over the last 7 years. And suddenly, Perth has gone up 20%. And she was like, wow, it's so good. And it's time to exit because she does not understand the market. She was like, okay, this is the top because there's so much growth here already. And she has no confidence in Perth market. So she actually sold the property 3 years ago, right? I was shocked. I was like, this is the perfect time to get in. Like, why do you sell it? But of course, if you look at the price trend, it looks ridiculous high because it's just like this, go straight north in a year time, right? And the previous 6 years was like that flat, or even going down a little bit. So for her, it was like, oh no, this is too much. The first market is going to have a huge correction later. So she sold the property, and 3 years later, the property has gone another 30%, right? I'm pretty sure that she's so regret at this moment. But hopefully she can buy the property back, but I don't know. So that's the thing, right? So never actually timing the market, but put as much time as possible in the market, right? That's actually what I would like to suggest.
I think always look at the supply, right? Because as a lot of people are saying, supply doesn't lie. If the supply is low, then there's only one way that will happen.
That's right. Yeah. We just need to use common sense, human common sense. If there's no stock and everyone need a place, need a roof to stay, normally it's going to be rental or normally it's going to be an unoccupied purchase. They need a place to stay, right? If there's no supply, they are not everyone is going to stay under the bridge, right? So we need to find a roof. So yeah, whoever pays more would get a better chance to live in a better condition, right? Unfortunately, this is reality in Australia.
Plus, as I think we're safe to say that we're both migrants, right? And yes. I don't think the migrations is going to stop because Australia need migrants like us.
That's right. Yeah. So there's another question about the price prediction. Like does your tool actually provide a bit price prediction or something like that?
Well, what I'll do, I'll show you how I use the platform to, to not to predict, but to identify areas that are about to experience short-term growth, right? So,
Okay.
yeah.
So guys, pay attention, right? So this is the paid content.
So if you'll notice here, right? So that's the reason why, that's the reason why we do have performance change metrics in here, right? So what I do usually is I put sales days on market to negative. So let's say -2 or -3, right? That's It's telling me that, show me the list of areas that has decreased by at least 2% compared to where it was 12 months ago, right?
Yeah.
And then I overlay that again with, let's say, this is negative again, so -2, right? So it has decreased 12 months ago, and it has also decreased 3 months ago, right? The next is the sale listings. Right? So the sale listings, I put this to negative as well, right? So put that to negative. Let's say this -2 for over 12 months, and then -3, let's say for over 12 months, 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm telling, on top of the continuous demand, I'm now saying overlay that with continuous decreasing of supply, right? So now we're down to 445, right? So next that I'll do is now show me the list on top of it. Show me the list of areas that has increased so far over the last 3 quarters by 5%. So that means there's still room for that 5% to increase. Since it has just increased by 5%, then there's still an opportunity for that to increase, right? Then I start now doing is what's the population in there? What's the percentage of owner occupier? What are the infrastructure projects happening in that area, right? So yeah, so that's how I use the platform to predict, not to predict, but to identify the warm spots, I would say.
Thanks so much, Gilbert. That's a very insightful technique that we can all use to actually find the warm spot. Basically, it's really aligned with the supply and demand, right? So one part is actually looking at about the supply is dropping because the days on the market it actually is depending on, probably there's less stock or maybe there's more demand that is buying faster, right? And the sales listing is dropping as well, which means that you have a less demand, less supply on that side, and you have a maybe a faster transactions, right? Because the stock level is very low and the vacancy is low whatsoever. So then you really understand, okay, the supply is dropping, but the demand is actually increasing, and also you don't see a great growth yet, right? You don't want to looking for the property that has gone up like 20%, 30% already, right? You want to looking for the property that or the area has gone up like maybe 5%, right? Then you know that this area may have a huge potential to go up in the future. And as you can see on that screenshot, that's probably about a dozen of property that you already seen, but there are 200 properties that is already in this platform that you can looking for, right? So guys, if you really want to get such a full report, you can maybe just try this tool and run by yourself. So Gilbert, another question. So can you run property analysis, cash flow analysis, not the property that is not listed in domain, or can you just run any properties? The answer would be yes,
you
right?
can.
Yeah.
You can just type in the address, and it will pull automatically pull the address. Just type in select if it's house or units. So let's say for this one, right? So let's just say I'll refresh I'll just open it. So here, property analyzer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just type in the address here. So let's say for this one, 482 Urano. Yeah, then select.
Yeah.
Right. And then you choose between houses and units, right? And then let's say 3-bedder, because as you select the number of rooms, the suburb median changes, right? So now you just put in how much are you buying it, right? As your number, right? And then you put in everything here, and then the growth is automatically based on the database, right? And then equity in there, the stamp duty is automatically calculated because of the address, right? And then the rent per week is automatically pulled in because that's the current median rent for that suburb, and the vacancy rate as well. It's in there, right? So yeah, so that's how you use this for a property that is not advertised or property that we can say off market, right? So just type in the address and select if it's a house or unit. Because if it's a unit, then it will show a different suburb median price. The median price is there so that at least you have a benchmark if the property you're buying is above the median price or below the median price, right? So yeah.
Great. Another question is actually, once is subscribed, is there any sort of a tutorial to really understand this platform further?
Yes, definitely there is. So if you go here, click that how to videos. So we do have a lot on the left side, how to videos, we do a lot here, right? And also if you go to our website, SuburbsFinder.com.au, you can see here at the bottom, not at the bottom, the middle, right? So you can see what are the features that you can access. And if you click the watch demo, it will show you how to use those features in there.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I would say, if we're already using information in our daily life, so might as well use the information for buying property.
Actually, I wish I could have this data like 10 years ago, right? Because 10 years ago, I'm not sure where you were, Gilbert. I wish actually I would know you, and you probably already started to doing this sort of thing like 10 years ago, because I bought such a bunch of crap properties before, right? So actually I lost like at least $500,000 cash in the properties, right? And if I counted the opportunity cost or how much capital growth that I lost because I'm buying the wrong property, that's gonna be $2 million plus as per today's value, right? So I really wish everyone can using the real data, not just only trust on anyone, the salesperson, or including your buyer's agent, right? You gotta make them to show you some facts, not just because they think an area can grow up, right? Because you have to get them like, hey, can you show me some sort of a fact, like reports or data, hard data, that this is going to be a good area to invest.
This platinum here, this is for the regular moms and dads. So these are all the data points that they only have access, only up to here, right? So if you're just a regular investor, then probably you can start with this one. But if you have more requirements, if you want more access to the data, and if you want to run more feasibilities, then these are the ones that you have access to when you go to the business plan, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're a buyer's agent, you can white label the report. the bushfire flood zones, the heat map, which forgot to show, and the suburb analytics as well, which you can create your own graph as well. Yeah, so all of those things. Yeah, that's the main difference.
So yeah, thanks, Gilbert. And let me just explain further, right? Because seriously, guys, $99 is just too cheap. So if you just want to buy the simple data, as a single investor, you don't want to having a pack of full advantage data. You just go for the 99 version, and there's no discount. Sorry about that, right? But because that's just for any investors who only want to get a bit more data to understand if actually they're on the right move. But if you are really a pro investor, you really think investment is a thing, you want to treat it seriously, or you want to make it a career, right? Just go for the business version. You have a full pack of data, and that's where we having a bit of discount for you guys, right? So if you want to treat this as a career, no matter it's going to be side hustle or no matter it's going to be your full career in the future, right? So that's a business version I would definitely suggest, right? So for me, it's just no-brainer to go for the business version because I have so much data point that you feel so confident to go to an area and maybe avoid like the flooding zone, the fire zone, whatsoever. Just making your life much easier. But of course, if you decide to go for the investor mom and dad investor version, $99 is already very cheap, right? So I don't feel I can get any discount from Gilbert because he's already providing a good, reasonable price in the market. Okay, guys, that's it for today's session.
Thank you.